Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today, we're going to be going over the top 10 best PvP vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online in 2022. Now, I've never actually done a specific PvP vehicle video, so in this list, I've got 10 vehicles that I think are absolutely superb for PvPing in Grand Theft Auto Online. All of these vehicles will be able to help you in one way or another. Some of them are more defensively oriented, some of them are more offensively oriented. Anyways, let's get into it. We're going to go ahead and start off with number 10. Starting off with number 10, we of course have the Insurgent Pickup Custom. Now you guys know that I go on and on about this vehicle, but I do feel like it is truly one of the better PvP vehicles in the entire game. The Insurgent can take 27 homing rockets and it can take about 9 RPGs, so it's really good armor wise. On top of that, it's also very capable off-road. You can take this thing pretty much anywhere on the map and it will do it without any sort of an issue. Obviously, it's better if you have more than one person inside of your Insurgent because they get access to the top-mounted minigun or machine gun depending on which option you have equipped. So it definitely helps to have a partner when you're doing things with the Insurgent, especially PvPing obviously. However, you can operate it solo and it does have a proximity mine dropper, so it is pretty good. Now you will need an MOC to customize the Insurgent Pickup into the Insurgent Pickup Custom, and overall it will cost you about $1.7 to $1.8 million with the Insurgent Pickup and then the upgrade into the Insurgent Pickup Custom. Overall, it's a really good PvP vehicle, and I think that everybody should own one of these in Grand Theft Auto Online. That's it for number 10, on to number 9. Next up at number 9, we have the Laser. Now the Laser is stealable from the military base, which is exactly how I would recommend getting one of these, or you can buy it from Warstock for $6.5 million. It is the most expensive plane on all of Warstock, which is pretty crazy. I would not recommend picking one of these up from Warstock. I'd recommend just like if you have a hangar at the military base, just literally come in and just get in your jet like I did. You know, if you crash, you can come back and get another one. It's kind of a pain, but I don't know if spending $6.5 million in order to get a Laser that's spawnable in a semi-convenient location is really worth it. Now, the Laser is very good. It is a very maneuverable fighter jet in Grand Theft Auto Online, but I can't say it's my favorite plane necessarily. It does have the, you know, auto cannon that absolutely lasers things. No pun intended, I guess. This cannon just absolutely destroys. I mean, I think everybody knows how good the laser cannon is. Chances are you've probably been griefed by one before, so everybody's pretty familiar with how good the cannon is on this vehicle. It's probably its best weapon. Of course, it also does have homing missiles and it has non-homing missiles as well. These things kind of suck, but like, you know, they're not that bad, I guess, as well. So it's decent. It's very maneuverable. You can, of course, you know, evade missiles quite easily in the Laser, I find typically, usually if I am flying one of these, which is a rare occasion. But if I am flying one of these, I find I can avoid getting shot down quite easily because the plane is just so maneuverable. It's also very quick. It accelerates fast. It actually has a lower top speed than a lot of the other planes in the game, but it accelerates quicker because, of course, it is a jet. So it does have that advantage over a lot of other planes in the game, but not exactly the best and not one that I would recommend actually buying. I would just recommend, you know, going and stealing it from the military base, of course. Anyway, guys, that is pretty much it for the P996 Laser at number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Next up at number 8, we have the Mobile Operations Center, CAB. Now you can use the Phantom or you can of course use the Hauler. It doesn't really matter. Both of these are very good so long as you get them from the MOC. Now the MOC CAB is the most armored vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online, as I'm sure you guys have probably heard from me, or if not me, someone else. This thing can take 67 to 70 homing missiles from an Oppressor Mark II. It can take an absolute ton of RPGs. I'm actually not 100% sure on the specifics of that, but I know it can take at least probably 20, I would say. Pretty damn good. The MOC is also very fast. It doesn't matter if you get the Hauler or the Phantom, both of them are very quick. And they are kind of tanky. You can knock other vehicles out of your way very easily. However, they don't handle the best, as you guys can see. They don't like to turn really, because, you know, it is kind of a semi-cab, so it's not exactly the best. However, because this thing is so tanky, I do feel like it is deserving of being on this list. And another fun fact about the MOC, and probably its best feature next to its armor, is its ability to back people down. So say there's somebody behind me that I'm fighting, I can shoot at them straight through the back of this vehicle. However, nobody can shoot me through the back of the vehicle. So I'm pretty much invincible so long as my back is turned to them. because as you guys can see, there's no holes there, and if I get out of the MOC and I try to shoot through here, you will be able to see that the windshield does not break because the bullets just don't enter through the vehicle through the back. So the MOC, I mean, pretty decent vehicle. Now, depending on how you spec this thing out, you can get it for as cheap as like $1.3 million. But if you want to go a little more expensive, you want to get some more options with your MOC, it's going to cost you up to like $2.9 million. Both prices are very, very good. Obviously, the MOC is very useful. You can upgrade other vehicles inside of it, which is really nice. It's pretty quick, it's super armored. There's really no downsides to the MOC. You guys should all pick one of these things up for sure, 100%. So that's pretty much it for the MOC and the MOC cab. Let's move on to the next vehicle. Next up at number 7, we have the brand new Obey Omni ET. Now this vehicle is very, very unique. It goes for $1.8 million and it has a lot of really cool upgrades that help to make this thing into an actual great vehicle. Now the Obey Omni ET, if you guys are unfamiliar, is upgradable with Imani tech, and of course, as you guys can see by mine, it is upgradable with armor as well. So without armor, the Obey Omni ET can take 6 RPGs and 3 homing missiles. However, if you do equip it with armor, it can take 12 RPGs and 12 homing missiles. And of course, because it is an Imani tech vehicle, you can upgrade it with a missile lock-on jammer, so people won't even be able to lock onto you. So that means that this thing actually has insanely good armor for what it is. When I first saw the Obey Omni ET, I thought nothing of it. However, after I figured out that the armor was crazy on it, I was really, really impressed. Of course, it is also fully electric, so it does have extremely quick acceleration. It does have a piss weak top speed as well. And the handling is not exactly the best, but it is a 4-door vehicle, and it has insanely good armor and Imani tech, so really, what's not to like about this thing? For $1.8 million, you really cannot go wrong with an Omni ET. As long as you have an agency to upgrade it in, there's really no downsides to this vehicle. You should definitely pick one up. That's it for the Obey Omni ET at number 7. Let's move on to number 6. Next up at number 6, we have the unholy Oppressor Mark II. Now the Oppressor Mark II, as much as I hate to admit it, is a very good PvP vehicle, as I'm sure everybody who's watching this will know. Because you've been griefed by one of these, let's be honest, I don't think there's anyone on Earth who hasn't been griefed by an Oppressor Mark II, unless you've only played it in solo sessions. Pretty hard to survive against this thing. The Oppressor Mark II goes for $2.9 million if you have the trade price unlocked, or $3.9 million if you do not have the trade price unlocked. This thing has to be upgraded within the Terabyte as well, so it is going to cost you quite a bit of money in order to actually own a Mark II and also in order to upgrade it. However, once you do, the missiles are really, really good. Even despite the nerf that came out with the Criminal Enterprises DLC, the missiles still are really competitive, and you can take out targets quite easily with these missiles still. It only has 20 of them on board, so you will run out quite quickly, thank God. But it is also a really convenient vehicle for getting around. It's very maneuverable. You really cannot be stopped on a Mark II. It's very hard to get shot off of a Mark II. Unless you're in an auto-aim lobby, you will not really get shot off of these very often. Overall, the Oppressor Mark II is a good PvP vehicle. That's really all I have to say about this thing. I don't really like talking about it. I really don't like flying it, but it is good for PvPing. So that's it for the Mark II at number 6. Let's move on to number 5. Next up at number 5, we have the TMM02 Controller. You guys probably saw this coming. It's a tank. It's pretty obvious this thing's good for PvP. Now, there are vehicles that are better, don't get me wrong. It's not the end-all be-all PvP vehicle, hence it being at, well, number 5. Now, the Conjolley goes for $2.9 million if you have the trade price unlocked, or $3.9 million if you do not have the trade price unlocked. The Conjolley, obviously, like I kind of mentioned, and I'm sure, as you guys can see, it is a tank. So it does, of course, have a driver-controlled main cannon, which does, you know, pretty good damage. It'll insta-kill any civilian vehicle on the street. I also have mine equipped with a railgun, which you can charge up, which will allow it to shoot a little bit further than the normal cannon on this vehicle would. So that is kind of nice to have on occasion. On top of that, it is a 4-seater, so if you do have 3 other friends with you, they will be able to operate some of the other weapons that you guys can see mounted on the top of the turret, like the 50 cal machine gun or the 2 side-mounted grenade launchers. On top of this, you can also equip this thing with a proximity mine dropper, so if somebody's chasing you in the Conjolley, you can just keep dropping proxy mines, and you will eventually take them out, so long as they're dumb and just keep chasing you and keep getting blown up. Now the Kinjali is a little bit on the slow side, hence it being a tank. Obviously, I think it makes sense. Nobody's expecting this thing to be one of the fastest vehicles around. It doesn't have the greatest armor. It can only take about 8 RPGs, so that's not like super awesome, but it could be a lot worse, I guess, so it's really not that bad. It can also only take 8 homing missiles, so it is a little weak on the homing missile side of things. 8 RPGs, that's a pretty good amount, but 8 homing missiles, that's not very many. So you gotta watch out for that, especially if there's Oppressor Mark IIs around. You will get absolutely shredded in the Kinjali. However, for fighting ground targets, or even some aircrafts, it's really not that bad of a vehicle, and I would definitely say I recommend picking it up. And of course, because it is a tank, you can just run over other vehicles and, you know, do whatever you need to do. So that is it for the Kinjali at number 5. Let's move on to the next vehicle. Next up, we have the Pegassi Toreador, or Toreador, however you want to say it. Don't get mad at me in the comments. Now, the Toreador goes for $3.7 million, so it is a little bit on the expensive side. However, it is truly one of the best land vehicles in all of Grand Theft Auto Online, and it certainly is absolutely fantastic for PvP. To start off with, it has very high damage machine guns that are mounted to the front of the vehicle. As you guys can see, like, NPCs don't stand a chance. You can take out vehicles so fast with these machine guns, which is awesome. It also has missiles as well, and these are lock-on. They are the second tier missiles in the game, so they're about as good as the Oppressor Mark II's missiles, I guess. They might even be a little bit better, and they're really good for countering Oppressor Mark II's, Mark I's, and pretty much anything you lock onto with these, it will absolutely destroy it, so long as you can get a missile off. On top of that, the Toreador also has a rocket boost, like you guys can see, so you can get this thing moving pretty damn quick, pretty damn fast. The Toreador is also a 4-seater, of course, as you guys can probably tell, and if you didn't know, it is also a submersible vehicle. So you can navigate underwater. You can also store your Toreador inside of your Kasatka submarine if you have one. That's where I store mine. It makes for a nice little escape vehicle from your Kasatka. Of course, when you go underwater as well in the Toreador, you can also use the torpedoes. Your missiles turn from regular missiles into torpedoes, which is really awesome. On top of that, the Toreador also does not have a special minimap icon, so that is quite nice. It also has the ability to use its boost underwater, so you can get moving pretty quick underwater as well, which is nice. Overall, the Toreador is one of the best land vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. In fact, I think that it actually is the best land vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online. As far as capability goes, this thing is pretty much unmatched. So that's it for the Toreador. You guys should definitely pick one of these things up. It is an absolutely awesome vehicle. And with that being said, that is it for number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Next up at number 3, we have the Hydra. Now the Hydra is, in my opinion, the best plane in Grand Theft Auto Online as far as usefulness goes. It's really good for PvP, it's really good for taking out NPCs, it's really good for doing missions, it's really good for getting around. Really, you cannot go wrong with the Hydra. Now the Hydra only costs $3 million instead of the Laser's $6.5 million, so as far as bang for your buck goes, I think that the Hydra is a much superior vehicle. Now the Hydra technically does have a higher top speed than the Laser, however the Laser typically accelerates to its top speed a lot faster. However, the Hydra does have a speed glitch, which is really hard to do, and it's also really hard to show you, so I won't be able to do that. But the Hydra's main party piece is that it has VTOL mode. So of course you can activate VTOL mode and you can fly this thing around effectively kind of like it's a helicopter. So you can get into tight spaces with it and use its crazy autocannon to just absolutely mow down your foes or whoever you're fighting, really. However, the Hydra is quite weak, as you guys can see. I've already crashed it, so that's really good. Unfortunately, the armor protection of the Hydra is just not that great, but a lot of the time you'll never really get into any sort of trouble with it. I'd say about 90% of the time when you get shot down in the Hydra, you don't actually get shot down, you just end up hitting something which like takes a wing off of the vehicle and kind of renders it useless. So you gotta watch out for that. The Hydra is super great though. With VTOL mode, it is super useful. You can take out people in really tight spaces, and then you can just go out of VTOL mode and fly away extremely quickly. So the Hydra is really good in my book. For $3 million, you cannot go wrong with it. I would 100% recommend picking it up. Or if you don't want to spend that money, just go and steal lasers from the military base. It's not that bad. Make your choice, but I think the Hydra is a great vehicle. With that being said, let's move on to number 2. Next up, we have the Akula. Now Now the Akula, which apparently I say wrong, people were commenting and saying that I say Akula wrong. I'm not really sure how you can say that wrong, but anyways, I know it's a Russian word, and it means shark, I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, so that is kind of neat. Now the Akula is a 4-seater attack helicopter. It goes for $2.8 million if you have the trade price unlocked, or $3.7 million if you do not have the trade price unlocked. Now a very interesting function about the Akula, and probably its best function, is it has stealth mode. So right now I'm not in stealth mode. As you guys can see, I do have a missile crosshair, or of course I can use my machine guns as well and get that crosshair. However, if I press H on my keyboard, you can see the crosshair goes away, and now I am in stealth mode, which means nobody can see me on the expanded map like you guys can see right here. Nobody could see me on the mini map. The only way to see me is to spectate me, I believe, and even then that's kind of a huge pain in the ass, so generally I feel like people won't really do that. Now the Akula is quite well armed. As you guys can see, it has machine guns, it has homing missiles as well. You can also equip it with a 4-missile barrage instead of homing missiles if you want to. However, I think homing missiles are just kind of better in my opinion. It also does have a bomb bay, which you can obviously drop bombs out of. These are pretty good. They're really hard to aim, but I mean, they're good to have nonetheless, I suppose. Now, if you have a co-pilot in your helicopter with you, you can get them to operate the dual front-mounted miniguns that are on this thing. By default, it will be a single-mounted minigun, but you can upgrade it to a dual if you so choose. The Akula also has pretty good armor. This thing can take 3 homing missiles before it actually goes down. So it's decent. You can even crash this thing into the ground if you like had to or wanted to, and it will still just be fine. You know, it'll start smoking maybe, but actually apparently it won't. I guess it depends how hard you hit the ground and where you hit the ground and whatnot. But it is a really great vehicle. I mean, obviously you can seat 4 players, you can all go off the radar, you can fly across the map and nobody will have any idea where you are. So that is a pretty useful feature in my opinion. Overall, the Akula for $2.8 million for the trade price, or $3.7 without the trade price, it is one of the most useful helicopters in Grand Theft Auto Online. It's actually the vehicle on this list that I recommend picking up the absolute most. However, it's technically not the best vehicle for PvP in an actual PvP sense. So with that being said, let's move on to the number 1 PvP vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online. And of course, at number 1, the best PvP vehicle in Grand Theft Auto Online is the FH1 Hunter. Now, albeit the FH1 Hunter is really only super good if you have a co-pilot with you, but this thing is pretty much unrivaled if you do have a co-pilot. Now, the Hunter goes for $3.1 million if you have the trade price unlocked, or $4.1 million if you do not have the trade price unlocked. Now, as the pilot of the Hunter, you only get access to the bomb bay, which this thing has, of course, which is, again, pretty useful. It's nice to have, but it's not exactly the best weapon to use, I suppose. And the other weapon that the pilot gets access to is the 7-missile barrage, which is pretty nuts. Now, people have tried to correct me and say it's an 8-missile barrage. You can literally see it's 7. But it absolutely destroys. The amount of explosive, like, just damage that you can put down with this thing in, like, insanely rapid succession is just crazy. You can just get so many missiles downrange so fast. It's actually ridiculous. Now, you actually also do get access to the homing missiles as well, because this thing is, of course, equipped with homing missiles as well as the barrage, which is pretty nuts. So that's part of the reason why this thing is so good in PvP, is the pilot has a lot of weapons at their disposal. Unfortunately, you don't have any machine guns, but machine guns are generally pretty useless, I find anyways, so it's not exactly great. This thing has the exact same armor as the Akula as well, so it can take 3 homing missiles before it blows up. You can also crash it into things and it will generally be pretty much fine, so that is pretty nice. Now, what I wish I could really show you guys, but unfortunately I can't because I'm playing by myself, is of course the weapon that the co-pilot gets access to. Of course, the Hunter is only a 2-seater helicopter, but that's really all you need. The co-pilot gets access to the bottom-mounted gun on the Hunter. This thing can dish out insane damage. It literally will one-shot any player that it touches, and it's got crazy good range. So your co-pilot controls it in first person and basically gets access to just deleting anybody that they want to, up to a very, very good distance. I'd say probably from right where the Hunter is, you could almost delete somebody that's at the helipad over there. So the range is pretty nuts. It's also got a pretty good degree of viewing, so I'd say it's about 180 degrees that it can see out the front. The gun can also almost aim vertically, which is pretty nuts, so you can be right above somebody and just be deleting them with it. Overall, the Hunter is just a fantastic vehicle for PvPing other players in Grand Theft Auto Online. It's also really good against AI. Pretty much anything that you throw it against, no matter what, the Hunter is going to do quite alright for itself. So guys, there you have it. Those are the 10 best vehicles for PvPing in Grand Theft Auto Online. Now don't get me wrong, there are other great PvP vehicles. These are just the 10 that I selected for this list because I thought that it was a good mixture of pretty much everything that you might have to deal with in a PvP scenario. If you guys enjoyed this video, if you learned something, a like is of course appreciated. If not, dislike. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.